Good morning, good afternoon, and namaste to everyone present. I am Krina, and on behalf of the Energy and Resources Institute, I welcome you all to the 21st edition of the World Sustainable Development Summit, WSDS. WSDS is definitely TERI's pride, as it is a one-of-a-kind summit. It is one of the only summits that is organized in this scale by a private organization in any developing country. The title of today's thematic track is Emerging Opportunities Towards Sustainable Packaging Solutions, which has been organized in consultation with our partner, Ball Beverage Packaging. We look forward to having an engaging discussion and get valuable inputs from your end, as we have an eminent panel with us today. We have with us Mr. Amit Lahoti, Senior Director and General Manager Asia, Ball Beverage Packaging, Mr. Mitesh Pandya, AVP Sustainability and CSR, Vedanta Limited, Aluminum Business. We have Mr. Ankur Chawla, Director, Fabonest Food and Beverages Private Limited. We have Mr. Rajiv Sangoi, Co-founder of Rio Beverages. We have Ms. Krina Patel, Associate Director, AB INB Beverages. And lastly, we have Dr. Anupam Agnihotri, Director, Jawaharlal Nehru Aluminium Research Development and Design Center, which is an autonomous organization under the Ministry of Mines, Government of India. Dr. Agnihotri sir will be the chair of the session, will be the moderator, and now I request him to begin the session with his opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Kaushik. I hope I'm audible. I'm audible? Okay, good. So at the outset, let me welcome all the panelists and participants to this World Sustainable Development Summit 2022, also known as WSDS, which is organized by the Energy and Resource Institute, TERI, in association with Ball Packaging Beverage Company. As you know, we'll be deliberating on emerging opportunities towards sustainable packaging solutions in this session of, say, about 45 minutes. And in fact, I'd like to add that it's an honor and pleasure to moderate this session, and I'm grateful to TERI for this opportunity. I once again welcome all the 5 panelists to this session. So we have 45 minutes, 5 panelists, so it's about 7 to 8 minutes for each panelist to deliberate on the topic, that is emerging opportunities towards sustainable packaging solution. We have 5 panelists, Mr. Amit Lahoti, Mr. Mitesh Pandya, Mr. Ankur Chawla, Mr. Rajiv Sangoi, and Ms. Krina Patel. So before I request panelists to deliberate on the topic, friends, I'd like to share my thoughts about sustainable development. When we talk about sustainable development, one cannot ignore aluminum, an infinitely recyclable material which can play a big role in this transition towards sustainable world. The world is promoting a complete life cycle approach to sustainability and therefore encourages to adopt a fully circular assessment approach to the business, from refining of raw material to use and recycling. Time is high to encourage a whole life approach to design a product where sustainability and recycling are built into the core of the design process. No doubt, aluminum has opened a new era for the beverages and packaging industry. The demand for can-packed products has risen sharply, given the increasing emphasis on recycling and sustainable solutions. So they go hand in hand. As you know, after replacing steel to quite some extent in automotive industry in recent years, Aluminum has already ventured into this potential area of packaging and beverages sector. Although aluminum has been present in packaging and beverage industry for a long time, but it has now come to the stage of challenging plastics and glass because aluminum has become synonymous with sustainability, resource efficiency, circular economy, and of course, the recycling. Aluminum is being implemented where plastics and glass have been dominant so far. And for example, we can say packaging of water. In my opinion, we must look into the sustainability of aluminum for packaging and beverages. In that case, we must check upon, that's a simple rule, depletion rate of secondary resources. Here it's aluminum scrap or UBC, which should not exceed their renewal rates. So in support of that, I can say we are all for aluminum because aluminum is said to be a permanent material and can be recycled infinitely without compromising quality. And example of that is 75% of aluminum since its production is still in use. So the recycling rate of aluminum cans, as you know, is higher than for any other used packaging material. The reason is high value of the scrap metal, which is accompanied by or more highly developed technologies for sorting and recovery, which is the heart of the recycling. I mean, I can give example, as you must be knowing, that for about 20 aluminum can be recycled by the same energy needed to produce one can from the primary source. So aluminum for packaging and beverage industry passed this test of sustainability without doubt. I like to also mention about the challenges to the aluminum for packaging and beverage industry. As we see, it can be put under equation of an EQ, that is energy, environment, and economics. The first two E's, energy and environment, can be conquered, or I can say has already conquered by closed loop recycling. And in fact, this has been already done as a part of the system. Today, aluminum cans contain 70% of recycled content, which is 3 times more than what it used in other recycling or other packaging or beverage material, that is glass and plastic bottles. Also, in support of that, making a can from aluminum recycling saves about 85 to 90% of energy required to make a new can, as I already told. In support of environment, as you know, the associated emissions of beverage packed in aluminum cans are about 30 to 50% less as compared to its competitor glass and plastic bottles. So the second E of environment has also been taken care. Now comes the third E, is the economy. And the main challenge is economy. The main obstacle to increase use of aluminum in the beverage industry, what I feel, is a much higher price of aluminum compared to plastics in countries like India. So it is economics, which is a real challenge for aluminum to be used in the packaging and beverage industry. In fact, I was reading somewhere the consumption rate of aluminum cans is 1 per capita in our country. It's too low. Also, I'd like to share with you that Government of India has already initiated flagship programs for giving more emphasis to recycling and resource efficiency. There are quite good number of programs going under Niti Aayog, Ministry of Mines, Ministry of Environment. In fact, Ministry of Mines has notified the National Framework for Non-Ferrous Scrap Recycling 2020 and is in the process of setting up Metal Recycling Authority, and our institute presently has been named as temporary Metal Recycling Authority of the country. We are working on that. So under these initiatives, activities like labeling of green products, increasing of recycled content, star rating of the product, EPR, zero waste concept will be providing impetus to more sustainable means and modes for aluminum as a prominent material for beverages and packing industry. So with that, that was an opening note on emerging opportunities towards sustainable packaging solutions. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Amit Lahoti, Senior Director and General Manager, Asia, Ball Beverage Packaging, to please deliberate on the topic. Mr. Amit Lahoti, please.
Hello, hi, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Can you guys, everybody hear me okay?
Yes,
Excellent.
Mr. Amit, and you have about 7 to 8 minutes with you, right? So
thank you, Dr. Agnihotri. Thanks for that great, opening remarks. And I think, you've done my job, a lot easier. So thank you very much for that, firstly. And I was very lucky to join some of the sessions yesterday, and the word environment came up quite a lot in the discussions. And when we talk about the environment, we talk about air, land, ocean, trees, green grass, the fog, the smog. And for me, it's filled with life and mystery and opportunity whenever we think of environment. And it's much more than all what we think of. It's a complex chemical, physical, and a biological system that takes up a vast majority of our planet. And we are just beginning to understand it. Whatever we do for sure for the environment is a vital part of our life support system. It produces all the oxygen we need, and it regulates the temperature on our planet. But we are not giving it the respect the environment, our environment deserves, and it is a vital part of human existence. And as we look through the various parts of environment, let me touch upon packaging and packaging pollution. And when we talk about packaging pollution, in particular plastic pollution, it has reached crisis levels. Its impact is going beyond oceans and landfills. We are regularly now hearing microplastics in water we drink, food we eat. Animal and birds and other parts of our ecosystem are under huge threat under the plastic waste. Also, let's think about, for a mature, a developing country like ourselves, the needs to balance the need for the environment and for our growth and the economic growth. The growth in developing markets like our has to be achieved with a much lower resource consumption as compared to some of the historical growth stories we have seen in North America or Europe. Otherwise, we will end up causing irreparable damage to the environment, which is happening in some of our neighboring countries like China, or unfulfilled ambitions of countries which are resource rich like Nigeria. That is why controlling and managing packaging waste is a subject of national importance, and establishing a circular economy around that is the need for the hour. Let me share some feedback from a recent Nielsen survey, which was done with consumers around sustainability and on beverage packaging. 81% of the consumers expected brands to be sustainable and companies to improve the environment. 72% of the respondents were actively buying more environmentally friendly products more than 5 years ago. 83% of the consumers believe it's important for companies to design products which can be reused and recycled. And for us, as Dr. Agnihotri pointed out, the solution to all of this is the infinitely recyclable and economically valuable aluminium. It unlocks the full potential of packaging to convey its value as well as its purpose. As Dr. Agnihotri pointed out, 75% of aluminum beverage aluminum ever produced is still in use. Beverage cans are the #1 recycled containers, and which have a global recycling rate of 70%. And in India, the recycling rates are in excess of 90%. Now, let me come on to why aluminium and what is causing aluminium to be recycled at such a high level as compared to other packaging substrates. And before that, let me say a lot of the brands today are using the words, my packaging is recyclable. And we need to quickly move away from the word recyclable to recycled content. Because with recyclable, there is a lot of greenwashing which happens, and it's no longer acceptable for brands to just say my packaging recyclable and put the blame on consumers or the waste management companies to say they are not doing their part. Now let's look at why packaging is recycled, or some packaging is recycled and some packaging is not recycled, even when they are all recyclable. And there are 4 or 5 attributes which I'd like to bring in. For packaging to be recycled, it has to be easily collected. And for the collection to happen, it needs to have a high value, end of life value. And that is really important because the waste management agencies don't, for them to have a self-fulfilling business model, the collection needs to have value at the end of it. The packaging can be easily sorted. So when we look at stuff like bottles, where there is a cap, separate cap, a bottle, a label, the sorting becomes a problem. And I am not even going to a multi-layer packaging where the sorting becomes even a bigger problem. It should be easily separated into component parts. As I mentioned, when you have a cap or a label and the bottle itself, the separation becomes very difficult. And the recycling yields need to be high. So if you collect 100 kgs of packaging waste and the recycling yield is low, then that much value is lost in the system. And on these parameters, if we evaluate aluminum, I would like to highlight some of the key parameters from a beverage can perspective. It's made of one homogeneous material. It is very easy and economically viable to handle. The tab on the top of the aluminum cans comes at the back of the can, so there is no sorting which is required. And it is fully infinitely recyclable without any loss of quality. And as Dr. Agnihotri pointed out, every time we recycle a beverage can, it saves 95% of the energy to produce beverage cans from virgin material. So apart from these sustainability benefits, there are various other benefits of beverage cans, and I'll quickly point out brands love beverage cans because it's a 360-degree marketing tool for them, as they can print across the body of the packaging. The retailers and the distributors like it because of its lightweight nature, so it can go long distances without huge fuel consumption, and stackability in constrained warehouses space is also a huge advantage. And finally, from a consumer standpoint, they like the freshness of the beverage, 100% non-contaminated beverage with original taste. Hence, we are seeing increased adoption of beverage cans for not only traditional beverage categories like carbonated soft drinks or beer, but also increasingly being adopted by growing beverage categories like energy drinks, juices, wine, hard spirits, flavored alcoholic beverages, and the list could go on. So I'd like to conclude my remarks with the points: infinitely recyclable and economically viable, aluminum unlocks the full range of potential for packaging and conveys its value and purpose along with your favorite drink. Us as can makers, we are not only a supplier, we are your sustainability partner. The plastic pollution has reached crisis levels and it's capturing public attention, and the growing concern around impact on health of human and animal and the natural environment. And it poses a threat to beverage brands reliant on PET. As consumers and government look for solutions, they are increasingly rejecting recycling plastic as a credible solution and are evaluating brands, sometimes negatively, sometimes favorably, by the material they use and the message it sends. Aluminum solves the problem, the challenges which the beverage industry is facing. Choose aluminum, and you can build your brand, inspire consumers, and tell a story how you choose to invest in the future of the planet, our planet. I'll turn it back to Dr. Agnihotri with those remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Amit Lahoti. That was really, very interesting to hear about the aluminum cans in the beverage industry. And Mr. Amit, I think your emphasis was all in support of sustainable environment through beverage industry, how it can be done best. So moving on to the next panelist, Mr. Mitesh Pandya, who is, it's AVP, so Vice President, Associate or Assistant Vice President, it must be Associate Vice President for Sustainability and CSR at Vedanta Limited Aluminum Business. Mr. Mitesh Pandya, please.
So thank you, Dr. Anupam Agnihotri. And Mr. Amit, I think very well presented the case for the aluminium in the use of beverage. I think today's topic is really very important because world is at the age of conflict now, where you see the sustainable development is very key. And everyone is talking about, since the UN SDG goal has been published from 2015 onwards, and the COP26, where we have been talking about the climate change, this topic of sustainable development has really taken attention of everyone. And with waste being a very big topic, and India being really starved of the land is always a conflict in a country like India. I think this topic needs attention, and rightly so. And I see the government of India is also putting a lot of attention to it. So whether we spoke about Niti Aayog, which has really taken some measures onto it, we have published now, 2019 eco-efficiency policy, which talks about the sixth sector, how the recycling will take place. But as Amit said, the problem is pretty huge. And the plastic is the one area which requires big attention. Amit also mentioned about recyclability. The importance is not about the recycling, the importance is about the closed loop recycling. And today, if you look at it, about say more than 300 tons of plastic waste is being generated. But if you look at out of this, 50% of waste is a single-use plastic. And it hardly gets recycled. And if I just tell you that US industry, where the plastic bottle is used, only 20% of that is being used in a closed loop recycling, where the aluminum goes up to 60 to 70% in closed loop recycling. And if you consider probably, the beverage manufacturing in India, hardly any bottles are getting closed loop recycles because the food, act and the food law and the material plastic as such, it is of such a nature that if you use it multiple times, it will actually create some food related issues and probably bring in the toxicity. So food security is very prime important requirement, and probably the recycling of plastic is still required to come up to that particular age. Aluminium is a material which has got an infinite, recycling potential. It's a metal of future. And the good part is that this is a growing story of aluminium. So as my previous speaker has talked about it, almost 70% of aluminum is still embedded into the life cycle now. It is still not come out. So I believe the primary aluminum industry has a huge scope to improve and grow. And we at the Vedanta Aluminum are one of the largest aluminum producer in India, largest producer in India, and the largest producer under one roof beyond China after the China. Our factory in Jharsuguda, that is the single largest producer, beyond China under one roof. So now, what are the things which actually helps aluminum to become a very good packaging material? First, it's a very lightweight material. So it actually helps efficiency in building, transporting the aluminum, producing energy efficiency. Second, if you look at it as a part of life cycle, it is very high conductor of electricity as well as the thermal energy compared to the plastic. So when you talk about in terms of life cycle energy use, when you want to use a ready to use beverage or a single use beverage where you need to give a refreshment to your customers, I think it provides a very good energy efficiency in terms of usage into the retail, in terms of refrigeration and other thing. So that's an additional benefit which gives the entire life cycle part of it. And third very important part of that, it has very hardly any toxicity when you talk about when you use a multiple recycling of it. So it is not only good in terms of life cycle point of view, multiple recycling point of view, but also food product and safety point of view, right? So this is what it actually gives benefit to the consumer when it terms of talks about, and value to the consumer when you talk about can as a use or preferred choice of material for the consumption. Now coming to area where what can be done basically for the aluminum industry to further grow, right? I believe today, the consumer awareness is really increasing on height. And now if you look compared to India, other growing market, while we have just embarked on the journey of eco-efficiency and talking about how we are going to recycle, how the framework is going to put in place, in some of the developed countries like US, this framework is already put in place. So if you look at some of the terms which was used by Alok, they actually monitor, how the consumer, cans are getting recycled. So whatever the consumption which is happening, how much percentage is getting recycled, how is the industry is getting overall recycling is doing that, what is the recycling content of the can. Now, if you are able to publish this information publicly and very transparently every year, I think consumer will also understand that what material is more recyclable, which cans and which packaging are more sustainable, and they themselves will make a choice, because that what is more sustainable, what is good for the country, and what is good for the earth, and what is good for the overall economy. So I think we should able to give a choice to the consumer and to the public in general, that what is the right thing for the overall sustainability of the environment. And I think some of these KPIs are very, very important. We should actually monitor the things, publish this data, and allow consumers to make a choice by them in general, that what is the right product for them to use in terms of a customer what you call the satisfaction, or I would say customer choice of beverage package as well as the sustainable product. So in nutshell, I think we need to reach out to the young consumer, because the can is one product which would be liked by, it's like a on the go product. So more used by the consumer and customer, which are more of a young, they have got a more spend power. They have a, they are more environmental conscious. Our job, while I know that aluminum has got all the pluses to tick, including the recyclability, including the thermal conductivity, including the less toxicity, it is basically the creating awareness. It is basically creating the ecosystem so that the 100% recycling takes place. It is about the disclosure. It is about publishing the data and allowing consumers to make a right choice, so that the currently journey what we have started about talking the sustainable packaging, people take cognizance of the what is the right thing to do them for themselves and the sustainable future and economy and the environment. So with this, I think I'll just like to stop here. Thank you, and would be happy to take any question, if any. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mitesh Pandya. Thanks for your educative and appealing deliberation on packaging industry. You rightly emphasized more on closed loop recycling to make recycling a success for all kinds of packaging industry, and importance of public awareness programs about packaging material and its sustainability. Thank you, Mr. Mitesh Pandya. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Ankur Chawla, Director, Fabonest Food and Beverages Private Limited. Mr. Ankur, you have about 8 to 10 minutes to deliberate on the topic. Mr. Ankur, please.
Thank you. I think, already, given great insights by Mr. Lahoti, and of course, Mr. Mitesh as well. I don't want to talk too much about the aluminium benefits, because I think it has been very well articulated already. What I would rather do is why we started and what we do for that matter, and how, things are shaping up. Well, I was working with the hotels in my past, and I think there was an urge of getting away from plastic from a majority of the corporates for that matter, and I think that is one of the challenges that we were facing to replace plastic. And we didn't want to get into glass purely because three major areas where we were facing majority of the concerns. One, of course, I think glass in terms of functionality was not very acceptable. we could easily chain the fancy restaurants or the low volume areas. But I think when you talk about the bigger volume areas, and I think that is where the numbers actually generate, even in hotels or in other industries as well, like banqueting, outdoor caterings, rooms in a hotel. I think that is where the majority of the challenge was, and it was very difficult to replace. Second factor being, the cost. Post-COVID, of course, cost has become a much bigger concern, particularly for the travel trade or in other corporates as well. So costing was not as much comparable that we could easily replace it, particularly in the bigger volume areas. And third, as I think rightly or most of you already mentioned, about the environmental friendliness. So when we get into the details of the carbon emissions, the transportation, or even the energy consumption at the end use stage for against different plastic or glass or aluminium as a packaging material, I think aluminium straight away wins the battle easily in more ways than one. So keeping these three things in mind, we started with natural spring water packaged in aluminium cans. Now, again, there are pros and cons of being the first ones in India or being the first ones to take that step. Of course, at the initial stages, this was right post-COVID, there were a lot of challenges. But the response has been encouraging as well. I mean, as a matter of fact, we started post-COVID, and we have seen as a startup 3 lockdowns already. We surviving right now in itself is a testimony of sorts. That the response has been amazing. But I would still say that there is a long way. With all due respect, there is a long way to go when it comes to education. I think what we have really seen in the consumer behavior, even B2B or B2C, the urge of getting into non-plastic or sustainability is there. But I think still there is a lot of education and an action which is required at a bigger level. Just to give you a sense of this thing, last evening we were at a dinner, and everybody wanted to get away from plastic, and nobody wanted a plastic water bottle on their this thing. But there are a few consumers who are still using plastic bottles at their houses, or they would still would do use a plastic bottle or a glass bottle at a different stage. So I think that is where the difference is coming from. As Mr. Mitesh rightly mentioned, plastic, particularly single-use plastic, is one of the bigger problems. Just to give you an array of the numbers, I was working in a hotel which was about 500 rooms, and we were consuming about 1700,000 bottles every year of plastic, and of course the numbers were increasing. So I think that's a huge area or a huge concern, and you can multiply with the number of 5-star hotels in Delhi NCR, and then you can of course look at the magnum or the scale of problem when it comes to pan India. So all in all, I think there is a lot that's happening when it comes to the education or when it comes to the action from the industry side. I would be very happy to see a lot more happening from the consumer side as well, and we really feel that there is a huge scope when it comes to not only HoReCa as an industry but other industries as well, like airlines, which I feel is a huge or a big consumer of plastic water bottles, particularly the small 250 mls or single pour ones, cinemas, and so on and so forth. So I think concluding my remarks over here, I think it has been an encouraging and a bit of challenging journey. But in the future, we really are very positive about it, and the response has been really good. So thanks to the partners like Ball Beverage, who've been really encouraging us, not only in terms of business, but at times motivating startups like us as well. And so and thanks to sort of the kind of sessions that we're having right now, which definitely imparts a great amount of knowledge at the end consumer level as well. So that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Ankur Chawla. Thanks for keeping the time. That was nice of you, and thanks for sharing your real life experiences regarding packaging materials, especially the initiative of water in aluminum cans. That's very interesting. Mr. Ankur, you rightly stressed the benefits of aluminum or other packaging materials, and of course, the future scope of aluminum beverage consumptions that you rightly said, airlines. Thank you, Mr. Ankur. Now I'd like to invite Mr. Rajiv Sangoi, who is a co-founder of Rio Beverages. Mr. Rajiv Sangoi, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Anupam, and a very good morning to everyone. I'm Rajiv Sangoi, and I'm one of the co-founder at Rio Beverages. Our plant is based in Pune, and we started out in 2011. We are into manufacturing of carbonated fruit juices as well as energy drinks, and currently we are distributing to around 32 cities across India. So when we started off, the concept of our Rio beverages in 2011, the intention of starting Rio was that we wanted to present the young generation with very vibrant drinks, exotic flavors, and amazing packaging. So one thing that came to our mind when we were doing this is also packaging, because as Mr. Mitesh said, that the
I think we lost connection with Mr. Rajiv. Yes, now we can hear you. Now we can hear you.
Yeah, sorry. So just getting back. So when we launched in 2010, 2011, one of the packaging initiatives, as I said, was to launch it in glass bottles and cans, because we were primarily targeting the youngsters between the age group of 15 to 25. And we were trying to understand the market and saw that these are the consumers who are more inclined towards sustainable packaging. So we were glad that Ball supported us with the initial volume that we had was probably 300,000 cans that we did in year one, and last year we ended up with a volume of 12 million cans. So you see that growth of aluminum cans over the years, last 8 years, has been phenomenal. Our consumers have loved the cans. The packaging, the vibrancy because of the aluminum has been wonderful. So we are very happy that we took the decision of going into aluminum cans. And also, as I said, we launched in glass bottles, but over the years we saw that transportation of glass bottles, the handling of glass bottles as well was becoming very difficult. So just to give you an example, one glass bottle of mine for 250 ml used to weigh 200 grams. Whereas a can weighs around 10 to 12 grams. So you see the transport savings and the amount of fuel that we save while we transport the same volume of beverage in a can as opposed to in a glass bottle. So in 2016, we made a conscious decision to shift our entire line portfolio of products into cans. So we stopped glass bottles completely and we moved on to cans. So 2016, last 6 years, we've shifted 100% into aluminum cans with the support of Ball Beverages, a very good partner in our journey over the last 10 years. And so that's, regarding the consumer perception towards cans is increasing. Accepted very nicely is what we've experienced in our journey over the last 10 years. And moving ahead also, I think the main challenge for acceptance of the can is going to be the pricing, because today around 90% of the carbonated beverages is sold in PET bottles at the price point of between 10 rupees, 15 rupees and 20 rupees. So that's where I think the main challenge of what Mr. Mitesh spoke about was single-use plastics. The cheap drinks that have been that are flooding the market across. A lot of work needs to be done on that part as well, and to see how we can promote aluminum. But changed our company logo last year, and we've incorporated the can proudly into our company logo. The logo today proudly represents the top of the can because we believe in the can as the way forward. So today we are doing 12 million cans, and the target is to nearly double this volume in the next 2 years. And Mr. Lahoti, along with the BALL team, has been supporting us, strongly in our endeavor to increase the volumes of the cans and move ahead in different markets. So yeah, I'd like to conclude by saying that yes, aluminum is the way forward, at least for a company like ours. And with the support of the industry partners, a lot of startups can come in and change the game here, because today the beverage industry is mainly dominated by the plastic bottles, which definitely is a grave cause of concern. And I think the government of India is also coming out with some plastic recyclability laws in terms of single-use plastics. So I hope that that comes in soon and more players move on to cans today. So yeah, that's my bit on my journey with cans and on-ground experience of how consumers are lapping up cans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rajiv Songe. Thanks for sharing your practical experience and examples regarding introducing new packaging material in market. You very well projected the growth of aluminum cans. We heard that. And of course, what you talked about, emphasized or stressed upon, was the importance of consumer perception, ease of handling, and the cost of cans. So thank you very much, Mr. Rajiv Sangoi, and we move on to the last panelist, Ms. Krina Patel, Associate Director, AB Inbev.
Hello, good morning. Yes, hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for giving the opportunity for me to take you through my perspective. So as everyone mentioned, right, importance to move towards sustainable development is no more a choice, right? It's the necessity that we need right now. And if you look at, it has to be looked at from two perspectives. First is how the consumer wants it, right? As Amit mentioned, there have been multiple market surveys in which the consumers have said that they would want to move to sustainable packaging, right? But at the same time, there is a challenge in terms of how Mitesh said, in the awareness that is available, right? For example, there is a choice in the market. You have PET bottles, you have glass bottles, you have cans, you have MLPs, and etc. Right? There is a plethora of options that you have when it comes to different kind of industries. And if you see beer especially, it's majorly between glass bottles and cans, right? Majorly driven by glass bottles. So first is what the consumer wants, and does the consumer know how to make a choice, right? Basically, it's very important that we do overdose of information for them to make an informed decision. And at the same time, it is how us, like the manufacturers of cans, glass across the industry, plus the food and beverage industry, knows how to contribute towards sustainability, right? For example, there has to be, the government needs to come up with incentivizing how to, make more sustainable material. Like we've done certain pilots where we wanted to convert our straw into, carton boxes, for example. It has taken that startup through our 100+ accelerator. We wanted to do it in a year, but we took 2 years, right? Because they did not have the necessary support that we require from the ecosystem to scale that, right? So we need that in terms of, then we also need policies, how to disincentivize the plastic usage that comes into the market, right? Because still it is a huge portion of it. And obviously it is cheaper, if we can argue for what industry, but still the major mass will choose that, right? Because it comes with a cost. So we need a lot of facilitation from across industries, across governments, across startups to facilitate availability of sustainable material, right? In terms of another perspective that I have when it makes a consumer choose whether this particular packaging material is sustainable or not, we can go back to a rating system like we had it for refrigerators and ACs, right? That this material is 1 out of 5. It makes it simple. right? For us to understand, we can definitely say that, like I totally agree that 75% of aluminium is still in circulation, right? Then we can obviously talk about bottles, that 99% of bottles in beer industry are returnable, and there's a high return percentage as well. But if we can simplify it for the masses, right, that it is basically a rating from, it is 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5. We don't need to reach to 5 out of 5 because it's a long journey that we're going to take, right? It's going to be years when we reach there across the value chain. So I think that is one perspective, that it simplifies and it allows the consumer to choose, right? And when it comes to cans, right, because of COVID, we have seen it's more easier to use even in our industry. We had seen certain levels of pockets in India where cans had increased their market share, right? Now, what the industry can do, whether it's going to remain as is something that we need to make sure, right? If you want to increase the can mix in the industry, it shouldn't be that because of COVID, because the trade channel was in home consumption, still the bars and pubs are not fully scalable, right? And people still fear to go with certain waves coming in. So to keep it sustainable, like the market share needs to hold in the future, there has to be a lot of partnerships like we are doing with Ball in terms of communication, that, consumer at the end will have the choice, and that is what we need to partner across, like form conglomerates across the value chain to give enough information till everyone knows it by heart, right? That, okay, this is the material I would choose, because obviously the young consumers, as Mitesh mentioned, that they want to move towards it, but they need to also understand it in a very, very simplistic and basic way. So in general, we've been in terms of the beer industry, we've seen certain movements when it comes to the choice and the mix of packaging in different pockets across the country. But we need to work together to make sure that, if we have to increase the can mix, because predominantly beer is in a bottle, and if we need to move it in cans, then we need to work together to give them enough information to make that choice so that it becomes, the share increases, right? So that would be my perspective when it comes to what we can do in the packaging industry.
Thank you, Ms. Krina. Thank you very much for your thought-provoking and engaging deliberation on the packaging industry. You rightly said sustainability has become a necessity and underlined about awareness and consumer perception. Of course, you mentioned about the importance of government support to push the program of sustainability. I can say government is all for sustainability, all its program, whether it's Niti Aayog, Ministry of Mines, Ministry of Steel, they are working very hard to make this program a success. So thank you very much. Over to Ms. Kaushik. Hello. Can anybody from TERI hear me?
You are on mute.
Sorry, my. Yeah, I was on mute. Sorry. So thank you, Dr. Anupam Agnihotri, sir, for chairing the session and for your closing remarks. We got some lovely insights into how we can move towards sustainable packaging. I would also like to thank all the panelists, all other panelists who have taken out their valuable time to join us in the session and make the panel a success. Further, I would like to thank our partner, Ball Corporation, represented here by Mr. Amit Lahoti, for firstly pursuing the goal of sustainable packaging and supporting this discussion, which is definitely a step towards that direction. Owing to this lively discussion, we have been able to garner an exquisite amount of insights to our quest towards achieving sustainable packaging, and we look forward to apply this in our work. Finally, I would like to thank our colleagues at TERI, Mr. Shobik Bhattacharya, and other team members of the WSDS for making this panel a success. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.